And then after that first adventure, I'm like, oh man, maybe that was just RNG. Maybe I don't have to deal with this anymore, you know? And then I'm in the house, and the cats just start shitting in the house, and there's just pieces of shit all over the house. And I'm like, all right.
Maybe not for you, you know?
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yep.
And I stopped. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 561 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the weekly podcast for indie game developers. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam, and I'm the artiste.
And we are Butterscotch Shenanigans, and today is February 20th, 2020. Quick! Let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about Mewgenics, which we mentioned last week that we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about it once we all had a chance to play it. We all had a chance to play it, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about the current status of the How Many Dudes demo and marketing and Next Fest coming up. And we were also in an article in How to Market a Game, which was about How Many Dudes and how to choose a launch window, which was interesting. So we'll probably talk about that if we've got time. So
Let's go.
Mewgenics. So we mentioned last week, this is an interesting game because it was announced in the year that we founded our studio back in 2012. So I went back and looked through, and I was saying in the last episode that I remembered an article in 2016 about it. So I went back through I was like, let me see if I can go find that. And so it was actually the case that in 2016, there were several articles about it, and then the final of which was actually it's canceled. The game's canceled, and then in 2018, they started work on it again. So they worked on it for like 4 years and then stopped. And then a couple years later started up again, which was 8 years ago when they restarted work on it. So in the first week, it sold 1 million copies.
Jesus!
It's a lot of copies.
That's absurd.
Pretty good.
That's absurd.
But let's talk about the game itself, because we all played it. And on the podcast, we do a segment called Nailed It, Whiffed It. So it's not about like, do we think something is good or bad, or whether we recommend it or don't recommend it. We're not rating or reviewing the game. We're just saying, like, based on what the game was going for, do you think they nailed it? Like, do you think they did a good job at the thing that it's trying to be?
Yeah, which is, I think, it's basically we're critiquing the game, right? As in, we're not being like,
is it good or
we're just saying like,
what were they going for?
Critique is supposed to be based on what it's trying to do, right? And then you can separately have opinions about whether you like what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And the impact of the mismatch, if there was one. Right?
It's kind of like, I'm not that into romantic comedies because I think they're kind of predictable, right? However, there are some that just fucking nail it, and also like I do enjoy some of them, but most of them I'm like, all right, yeah, I get it. It's very tropey, right?
But even one that you don't enjoy, you could be like, I mean, they nailed it.
They just nailed it.
That's the point.
They nailed the formula,
Yeah, so Mewgenics is interesting because it is a roguelike, which of course, like Edmund McMillan, one of the biggest ones that he's got is Binding of Isaac, and that's like, I feel like Super Meat Boy is big, of course, but Binding of Isaac, it's a huge roguelike fan base coming from that, right? And plenty of expectations, but I think changing the format into like a turn-based thing was a super interesting approach. And what's really curious to me about Mewgenics is that it's a roguelike, right? So you take a few cats, you go on a weird battle round run out in the world, and then afterwards you come back to your house and you have to like manage this kind of like Crazy Cat Lady house where you are putting them in certain rooms. You're trying to like up the appeal and various other factors associated with your house to attract better cats and also then to breed the cats, right? And that's actually sort of like the meta power progression loop. Instead of, it's not pure roguelike in that sense, it actually has power progression in it. Then is like the other half of the game, in terms of how you're trying to construct your wins and stuff like that. And I think what's interesting to me is like, I think my verdict is that they did nail it. They did. I think it's partially because, but part of whether or not I think you can tell if someone nailed it is also if the people that they made it for give a shit about it. Do you know what I mean? To a degree.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like seeing again, like there's always that measure of like the thing is very successful. Obviously, fucking 1 million units in a week is insane. That's absolutely insane. That's like top tier. Nobody.
Well, and we had last week kind of predicted that, or we were kind of discussing what we thought the curve was going to look like over time of like the concurrent player counts. Will it spike and then collapse like it sometimes happens? Will it be a slow growth? Will it kind of peak the first weekend and then fizzle out? My guess was that because of what I had been reading about playtime and like combinatorial kind of explosion of possible play space, that the people who get into it will just put a lot of time into it, and that'll really stretch out the concurrent player counts. And then, as new people filter in, they'll contribute as well to those player counts, and you'll see kind of a steady growth for a couple of weeks and then sort of a fade off. So far, it looks like it's kind of trending that way, where it's like, the same days this week compared to last week, the game has more players. However, it's unclear if it's going to surpass its peak this Sunday compared to last Sunday.
Right.
I probably not, just because launch weekend basically. But it's got like 70, 80,000 concurrent players like this morning as we're recording
it's a healthy trend line, right? So I think what's interesting, is then when it comes to this kind of critique aspect of the game is, again, like the nailed it whipped thing is not supposed to be about necessarily about whether you liked it or not. It's just like, given what it appears that they were trying to do, did they pull it off, right? And also that's kind of regardless of success, but I do think seeing how other people feel about a thing also kind of helps you square whether or not they did it correctly. And so I think what's interesting in the case of Mewgenics is that I personally, I really like the turn-based combat. I really like the adventuring with the cats, all the zany stuff that happens with like the mix up of the mutations and the abilities you get. It's like there's so much RNG baked into every single run, right? And as a person who does just enjoy roguelikes a lot, I really like it. I like it a lot. But as far as like the cat breeding thing, I don't really like it that much. You know what I mean? It's almost like two games smooshed together. We've talked about this before. Like when you're making a game that is two genres, actually, right? You have this really interesting problem where like you can't go too far in one because it kind of pulls.
Sometimes the genres fight each other.
The genre, they always fight, right? And so you see this like Cult of the Lamb. I think they've done some good talks about their experience building this action roguelike with a base building element, right? And how so much of what they did early was like putting a bit too much stuff into either one of those, and kind of you have to figure out the balance of like where they can share space together and have them not just like fight each other. And for me personally, when it comes to Mewgenics, the breeding aspect, like the house thing, I kind of find tedious and annoying. And a lot of it comes down to just quality of life issues. And this was the stunner for me. Cause like, I feel like as we've made more games and just like, I don't know if it's gotten older or whatever else, but our own threshold for like dealing with kind of janky nonsense in a video game, from controls to what information is visible at what time, basically cognitive load things that could be present, but are not. I feel like it's just gone down so far where it's like, if a game doesn't show me the stuff that I need to see at all times, it makes me like sort of hover over a lot of things, or like
you don't want to fight the UI. You just want to have a good time and get what you need.
But to me, that's the main thing. As I feel when I'm experiencing that in a game, what I'm feeling is a kind of like disdain is too strong of a word coming from the developer.
It's disappointment.
I'm feeling
more of a
disregard. Is a disregard from the developer where they're like, I have something I want. It's the whole like I'm an artist thing, where it's like don't worry about the details of how it actually is like to experience it. Like I've made a thing in a very specific way. It's following my vision, and you're going to play it, and I don't care what it's like for you to have that experience, as long as you get to see my vision, which has nothing to do with my like how I interact with it, and everything to do with what it is,
Right. And so that's a good point. It's like it's basically what it is. I mean, it nails it, right? In those two aspects. The actual like moment to moment of it, I feel like there's so many, honestly, like bits and bobs where I'm like, why can I not just see these things? Why are certain bits of information like not readily available? Just simple examples.
To me, these are always so I didn't play Mewgenics. I watched my wife play it for a bit. It was instantly the moment I watched her start playing. I was like, this is not a game I would like. So on the opinion side, for many, many reasons, don't need to get into them. I just like it, so I wouldn't like it. But I was watching her deal with she was trying to play on Steam Deck on her TV with a controller, and moment to moment, like what I was hearing from her mostly was just frustration about trying to do the thing she was trying to do, right? But at the same time, and this is the part where I get like the most frustrated with an experience like this, is I could see the attention to detail in the design of everything else, right?
Yes, 100%.
Of everything else. There's like every little thing. There's something there. Everything in the game was done with intent.
Yeah,
an intent that I often disagreed with or thought was like,
sure,
childish, or whatever, right? Like, but there was intentions I didn't like, but a person cared and they did something on purpose,
very
thoughtfully, from like every little detail, from like what I was observing from this game, right? And it's kind of hidden because of like the art style of the game and how like toilet humor it is and stuff, right? Is that if you look at it surface level, you're like, oh, this is like
it's like lots of poop jokes.
It's just like some bullshit slapped together, whatever. Right? But if you actually really pay attention to what's going on, it's some weirdos made an extremely weird thing very on purpose, right? And I love that people get to do that, and I love when somebody spends a lot of time thinking about every detail of something extremely weird, right?
Yeah,
and that's what it is. And so, but it's that contrast between, hey, we care so much about this thing that we're making. Right. That we thought of every single thing to create the experience that we're envisioning.
But did they think about you?
The thing we didn't think about was you, like at all. Even though like our job is to deliver this to you to have the experience that we've created. And so it's always that this is why like in AAA it makes me so mad, because they have so many resources.
Yes.
And
they have UX designers.
Yeah, and they spend so much money and time and effort like building the thing. And when I experienced Jank in that context, it's so enraging because of that contrast. When I experienced that Jank with like an indie title made by two people over 3 years who didn't have any resources and just barely got it out the door,
you're like, whatever.
I've got more tolerance for it. It's fine. But yeah, for something like Mewgenics though, it's like there's infinite money behind that team, clearly infinite time to get it out the door, and so yeah, so that.
So I guess to specify a few things. So as examples for cognitive load nonsense. When you are looking at your cats in a battle, right? You got like 4 cats out there on a grid. They're doing stuff.
If you can figure out where the fuck they are on the battlefield because of the color palette.
So there's that.
Yeah.
There's that. But also like if you want to know just ballpark.
Yeah.
How are my dudes doing? What's the HP looking like? What are all the debuffs I got going on?
Who's injured? Who's not?
Yeah. In almost every sort of tactics or turn-based strategy thing that has units in it, you always can see the units, like a little portrait, always, and various status effects, HP, all the important bits, right? So you don't miss stuff. You have to hover over your individual cats in Mewgenics, just like one at a time, and wait a moment
with a cursor, right?
With a cursor before.
That means if you're playing on a controller.
I don't even know how to do it on a controller, honestly.
Yeah, again, a horrible experience.
Yeah, the hotkeys for the various moves are not visible.
Yeah, you just got to memorize
them. On the UI. You got to memorize them. They're also kind of strange, baseline. So, there's that. And then when it comes to other things like, I don't know, when you are in your house dealing with your cats, there's no way to like look at your cats from a stats standpoint, which is actually the only way you care about them, right? You want to know who's my strongest kitty I got in here that I could send on an adventure. You gotta fucking click. You gotta click all of them, or you gotta click on the little cat inspector and then just hit the right arrow.
There's like 20 of them, and they're all overlapping with each other. So
and they move around. So
and they're moving around, and they're shitting the whole time. Of course,
so you can cycle through them with one button click, but in whatever disorder that is. So you can't get
you can't sort. You can't be like, show me the cat with most health before I send it on an adventure. I'm gonna pick my best tank for this adventure. And so there's a series. It's like that kind of thing. There's a bunch of those things happening in the game experientially that make it just like you're saying, not enjoyable to moment experience. Even though, again, I will say, I've put in like 12 hours.
And again, and that's the thing that makes me like feel crazy, because I'm like, as a designer of experience you're trying to create, like, why would you be okay with the fact that you've created an experience you want players to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've packaged it up in such a way that their moment-to-moment experience is going to include them constantly being frustrated about things that are not really the game, right? They're quality of life things, because that means that that's actually the experience that you're giving people. You've basically guaranteed constant distraction from the experience you're trying to get players to have.
Mhm.
And I guess the part that I don't understand what people are doing.
I think this
when
is
they decide to like let that go into the wild,
What's bothering me about it is like it's honestly it's the only reason I don't play it more. Does
That's
that
what I
make sense?
mean.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I want
Yeah.
to play it more than I
but the
sort of
quality
like
of life
can
is so
stomach
high.
playing it.
It's
Yeah.
like, why would you allow that to be the thing?
I don't think it's about it being allowed. I think to me, it's that it makes me think of how like if you use Unreal Engine, use Game Maker, use Unity, use Godot, any of these out of the box engines, UI development is such an underdeveloped aspect of all these engines. It's all
Mhm.
about the game world. It's all about collisions and entities and 3D models and animations and whatever. And what we've really kind of honed in on over the past 5 years of working on Crashlands 2 and then now How Many Dudes is that at the end of the day, the UI is the game.
Mhm.
Yeah, like because it's the user interface. It's the bridge between you as the player and what is happening actually like in the game world. And we've taken the time to develop our own UI tools through Cake Frames, and that's actually what has allowed us to work on How Many Dudes. But even just for example, like over this past weekend, I was like, man, it would be really cool if I just had like a way to visualize which dudes I play with the most and like kind of get like a cool visual of all the best runs from my different dudes and stuff. And it took me an hour and a half to add a new button to the main menu where you just like hit that button and then there's all these different graphs that you can interact with and summon to look at all this different information. Or we also had like players saying, hey, I really want a way to see my my relics and like what the total pool of relics is for this run, and then which relics are associated with which dudes, and blah blah blah. I did that
another view of some of the data that's already present.
Yeah, and I did that last week in an afternoon with Cake Frames, and then I refined it some more.
And that's not true, but that's not really.
Well, but the point is like it's because it's easy. Like we have this tool that we put together that makes it incredibly easy, and most people don't have those tools.
Right, but they also don't have tools to make the underlying logic of their game easy. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's like the totality of the stuff that goes into like in Mewgenics, like the cat breeding system and like how they all move around in the house. Like that didn't come from an engine, right? That's all bespoke shit that they had to make up.
It is, but the harder it is to make changes to UI stuff, the harder it is to make changes to game systems, because any change to a game system needs to be reflected in the UI. And if you have if UI work is your bottleneck, then it becomes harder and harder to see a problem in the game and be like, let me tweak that problem in the game, because it's always going to cascade into some kind of UI change that also needs to happen.
Well, and that's ultimately what I mean is that it's not that like UI stuff is hard because of game engines, therefore people. It's that you're choosing where your investment's going into, because you're choosing where the bottleneck is.
And as game developers, we just kind of instinctively think about the game and the UI as separate things, and UI always gets kind of...
The UI is the thing you have to do.
Well, I think importantly, to the point of Mewgenics success, is that there are various acceptable bars of jank, right? And like the reality is, most people are not like power users of a game or whatever else. Most people are just kind of clicking around doing stuff, and so they may not even notice oftentimes these things, right? But so like it's one of those things where like it's you can't tell the degree to which it might be capping your success. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's not anything else, right? A thing that's not there, you can't tell what would have been.
Well, the sense that I got with Mewgenics, like for me, it was a whiff. Like I enjoyed Super Meat Boy, but I never really got into Binding of Isaac, and so I'm not coming in with the like baked in trust that it's like, this is going to be an incredible experience, and I'm going to like give it the benefit of the doubt necessarily. I'm coming into it just like any other game. And right off the hop, I was like, okay, the opening cutscene, fucking awesome. Music, fucking awesome.
The music's great.
You know,
the music was hilarious all the way through. And just like, as my wife was playing it, I was like, is this an endless song of somebody just like rambling about
Yep.
some cat themed thing. Like it's very
Yeah,
fun.
That's great.
and then like as soon as I actually get into the turn-based battle, the game started to stumble. So it was like after the kind of the opening, I started actually playing the game, and I'm trying to figure out like how to maneuver and get all the information I need or what does what. And it was kind of a combination, kind of to your point, of like information is not readily available unless you're kind of like hovering and searching for it. Certain stylistic choices with the UI just make certain things very difficult to even parse visually. Kind of like, for example, like the stylistic choices for how the turn-based order is presented. And it's like for example, some of the enemies are like literally a circle. Like as in like they're just like a blob shape or whatever. And there's like debris on the battlefield that looks identical to enemies in a lot of cases. And so trying to figure out like, who am I fighting? Where are they? Where are my cats? Like that immediately kind of threw me for a loop. But then I was like, okay, but this game is like, it's supposed to be about like this breeding thing, where like my cats are supposed to have some interesting traits or something. And then I guess I'm going to be able to, like
create a cat powerhouse,
bring those forward into new generations or something. And so then I play through my first adventure. I get to the house where the cat breeding is supposed to happen, and it just happens. Like I click the button, it's like end of the day, and then like sometimes 2 of my cats breed and make a kitten. I have no information about which cats were chosen and why, about what their stats are. I have no information about the kitten and how like that inherited any traits. At one point 2 kittens came out, and again I got no information about why that happened or what the consequence of that was. And so there was this like, or even like I would come across a random event in the world, and the game would just randomly pick one of my cats to engage with the event. And then you click your option, there's a random outcome or whatever. And so
what appears to be completely random is the problem. I mean, like,
it was basically, I felt like the game was leaning so hard into the RNG and so little into providing me with either like information or
clarity,
or clarity, or what I felt were like agency or interesting choices, that I felt like this game might as well just be playing itself at this point. Like I was reverse centaured by the game. Like the game was making all these decisions, and then when it was my turn to make decisions, the cognitive load of those decisions was fucking astronomical. Like after my first adventure, they're like, okay, it's time to go into your next adventure. So that at this point, that's where you grab 4 cats.
4 cats. Yep.
Which again, like Sam was saying, it's hard to figure out which 4 to pick because it's really fucking hard to get the information about each one. And so you grab your 4 cats, you throw them into a box, and then they go on this adventure. And but now on the second time around, now you've got collars, and you got to put these collars on the cats, and the collars are, it's your typical like mage, tank,
turns the cats into a
melee attacker, whatever. So it like you first thing you do is you like grab these collars and you choose which collar is going to go on which cat, and then if you have any equipment, of which you start to like build up a bunch of it, then you choose which cat is going to wear each piece of equipment. So you kind of have this like, you start each adventure with a blank slate where you have this big logic puzzle of like making all like tons of decisions, just
which
kind of
again
back
is,
to back.
I personally, I think that's kind of fun, but there's still a bunch of UX stuff there from a clarity perspective, which is like, because you can only see one of these fucking cats at a time when you're choosing the class, or when you're putting equipment on, it's really like, it's just a lot. It's a big mental load.
Well, and again, it's hard to tell what really matters. Of like, if I like whichever cat I picked to be my tank, I never could quite figure out why I would give a shit like of choosing one cat over the other, because my tank never seemed to do anything tank-like. Because this kind of comes to the next bit, which is once you start your adventure, again, back to the lack of agency and tons of RNG, each of your cats gets random abilities based on the collar. So you don't choose what they're going to be capable of. They're just capable of some stuff. And maybe that was affected by the breeding. I'm not sure, but whatever. And so, for example, my tank's ability became, during the battle, he can swap his highest stat with his lowest stat. And I'm like, that's all he could do. He could walk around, hit a thing, or swap his highest stat with his low stat. And I'm thinking, like, at this point, maybe there's a use for that later, But like, I picked this
Can't
cat.
figure out why the
Yeah,
fuck.
I picked this cat to be my tank because his highest stat was health.
Mm-hmm.
And his lowest stat was like intelligence or whatever the fuck, right? And it's like, all right, so now my one ability for this cat is be bad at your job. That's his only ability, which I never would have chosen, right? And it also didn't do anything specifically during the battle other than just like change the stats around.
Yeah, the spikiness of the RNG experience in this one is very intense, right? You can have you can go in being like, all right, I took the time to look through all these cats. Like I've endured the cognitive load. I've put the collars on. I have picked their equipment.
I've made all the decisions I can make. I've made set up my perfect team.
They're just trash.
Yeah, the game just gives them garbage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then also this is my own kind of like personal thing of like I'm okay with immature humor. I find the occasional fart hilarious. We got our own bean burrito and how many dudes. This game takes it to a level that actually just made me feel sick.
It doesn't have appeal for you. I think you're an out of both.
I had to spend. I would say probably at least 10% of my decisions or interactions in the first 2 hours I played this game, which I stopped after the first couple hours, were me interacting with actual shit, like actual pieces of shit. Two of my cat's abilities out of the gate was shit. Just take a huge shit. That was what they did. One of my cats had an ability where it would uncontrollably eat shit. So if there was shit somewhere, my cat would just automatically, on its own turn, without my input, walk over there and eat the shit. I had several like random events where it's like, your cat found a huge pile of shit. What do you want to do? And my option
I feel like you got like a particularly hilariously ill-fitting first round, like first adventure for you, like as a person. You know what I mean?
And then after that first adventure, I'm like, oh man, maybe that was just RNG. Maybe I don't have to deal with this shit anymore. You know. And then I'm in the house, and the cats just start shitting in the house, and there's just pieces of shit all over the house, and I'm like, all right.
Maybe not for you, you know?
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, I think it is that common. Like, I'm in a similar vein where like I don't find that kind of humor. I just don't find it very funny. But I can like I don't care usually. But if there's too much of it, it's like just about that. Then it goes from not just being not funny.
But
to
I think it's all about UX though. To be honest with you.
It is, yeah.
Because like the reality is like if the game was basically easy for you to play, if you didn't have to endure a bunch of cognitive load,
that's true. If you're put into a frame of mind where you're like kind of over it, and then the game is like, now that I've sort of like
you're now
like frustrated you, now eat some shit, eat some actual
you're
shit.
Like, I just worked really hard setting this whole thing up, and the game's just like.
Guess what? Shit. Your cat uncontrollably eats shit. Like you made all these decisions about what your party's going to be and what. Well, too bad because your cat doesn't even do what you tell it to. It just walks over and eats pieces of shit.
Yeah, so I think that's what I mean when I say that there is a cap, right? Experientially, then, because I do think there's a lot of people. I don't think we're weirdos, and I think we have a higher sensitivity to it, both from working in the industry for so long, but also just who we are. I think there's a lot of people who have that experience with it. There's no way, right? Where it's like
it can't just be us, you know. Yeah. It might not be a sizable minority, who knows, but it's not
right. And you might still play it again. Like I don't. There's so many parts of it where I'm like,
that's very annoying. Same with the UX Jank, same with all this kind of stuff. Like it's the question. It starts to become about personal thresholds, right? Yes. And again, for me, like thinking about it, like design, like they put 10 whatever years, depending on how you count it, right? They put a decade into this game, and the idea that you would be like, I want it. Ultimately, I want how much people play it to come down to how annoyed they get with
some clarity
UX
things. It wouldn't matter. They wouldn't matter if it were fixed.
But also, it just comes back to that whole thing about like being a developer of a game versus being a player of a game, and that how much you play your own game also can kind of dictate some of these things.
On the one hand, yes, because you know everything, but on the other hand, like you have to interact with that system all the time.
Well, it's not if you're not playing it.
That's true if you're not playing it, yeah. Because most of our decisions about how to improve quality of life stuff is because like
you play.
I know I personally like the moment I play test anything that Sam Seth make, I'm relentlessly complaining about quality of life issues. Because also, where I probably have the lowest bars on the team, probably, and I also have more like cognitive because I can't see things because I have aphantasia. I can't see things in my brain. So for me, cognitive load really adds higher.
Yeah.
Because if I can't see things at the same time to quickly look back and forth, then I might as well be doing random stuff at that point because it's not worth it to me to be like, okay, what did that do? And I'm legitimately take notes over here so I can see stuff at the same time, right? And also because my eyes don't work very well, and so like I need stuff to be big and easy to see and whatever, right? And so, but it's true for everybody on the team. Everybody on the team has their various thresholds, right? And the constant stream of feedback we're always getting is like quality of life is always a key part of it, right?
There's people saying,
we know they have playtesters.
I really want to be able to see this. I want to be able to see that. Yeah, I mean, and there are people who I saw leaping reviews who are like, yeah, I've been playtesting this game for 2 years. And I've got 300 hours in it and, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So for me, it was like, I think I had extremely high expectations for the game because of the dev time.
Yeah.
And because of the sort of brand name behind the team,
It's like you don't expect to get tripped up on the things you get tripped up on.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, and kind of to your earlier point, Sam, like there were so many things where I was like, man, they just went all in on this, like this aspect of it. Like the music and there's even shit like, when your cats are there and like the UI or something, when you click on them, they meow, and
there's so much charm.
And they purr. And then if you click on them too much, they start hissing, and then you can't click on them anymore. And I'm like, yep, that's
great.
But,
yeah, there's so much fun fun attention to detail
so
for
much
like
charm,
all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it created this kind of whiplash where it was like feeling like they clearly did spend a ton of time making this game, and that such low hanging fruit fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
That it was weird for me, So I don't know. Yeah. So I think you're right that like the audience for this game is large, obviously, but capped.
I think it's if we have like a nail that lifted, I would call this like a bent nail. You know what I mean? It's like, you got it in there, but like,
as in they could have nailed it better.
Yes. Because
they kind of like when they were coming down with the hammer, they kind of got off a little bit and kind of janked.
Yeah.
And I would say that like, these are all things that they can, take player feedback on and address and get, taken care of over the next 6 months of like updates and stuff like that. But like you're saying, they've been working on this game for over a decade, and they've had people play testing it for years and years. And so if those things are just not being addressed by launch at that point, they've had the time to deal with them, and certainly they've heard about them. And so at that point, it makes me think like, well,
priority for them.
Well,
and why would at this point? If at this point, because like, and this is the thing too about quality of life stuff like that is if your game does extremely well despite whatever the barrier, because there's always a quality of life barrier. There's no such thing as not having one. That's where like all accessibility features come into play. That's where how much you care about if people with a controller can have a good time and all that kind of stuff, right? You're always making choices there. There's no such thing as like, yes, this is perfect quality of life, and the only thing you'll ever be able to pay attention to is the game, not anything else, whatever. Like that's not how things work. You're always choosing like, this is gonna have to just kind of be a little less good than I would like it to be, because we don't have time or because it only happens for a second or whatever. So that's always designers and developers are always choosing where those thresholds should be. So they're always somewhere in the thing that goes out. And so if you release a game and the mismatch between how good the game otherwise is, right, and how high those thresholds are, right? Because like in the case of something like Mewgenics, like it as a game, ignoring the quality of life stuff, has such a high interest and success rate, and people are really into it that they're on average willing to, without even commenting, put up with a lot of jank, right? Yeah. So now post-release, why would they fix that? They're not going to fix that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And if you did it the other way, where like you did that, and then those were like materially impacting your review scores and how people talk about the game, that kind of stuff, because the mismatch was too high, then now it's probably too late to fix it, So I guess one of those things where I'm just like, as a designer, as a developer, just try to have those be reasonable thresholds.
I put it this way: like one of our internal rules is basically like is to whatever reasonable degree, we do not want people to stop playing one of our games for what we call a stupid reason, which is like, in the demo, we updated the demo so that people could actually basically change the window size when it's windowed and move so that they can move around and like have it actually be small, somewhere else while they're playing. Because that was one of the top things people ask for, which like none of us, I don't personally care about. It's never been a thing I do because I play a game when I'm playing and I don't put it over there and like do stuff with it. But like I recognize that would be really annoying if that's literally how you want to engage with this thing, and you just can't.
Well, and for a game like How Many Dudes, right? Because How Many Dudes as a game is like it's an idly kind of thing where you can like set something off to go happen.
You can play it on the second screen.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it's like,
so
okay,
people
let's
were
go
wanting to play that way. Yeah, and for us to be like, no, you can't play it that way.
Yeah, it's like I don't want someone to not play it because of that. Like of all the work we do, like I want you to hate the thing.
You spent all this time designing all these game systems.
Yeah,
you're doing all this stuff, trying to make the game awesome, and then somebody just runs into some completely other thing that's unrelated to anything.
It's not about the design.
Gameplay.
It's not about the appeal. It's not about like anything about the game. It's like a fucking UX thing or a technical thing. Yeah. And it's so annoying.
Like I keep accidentally spending all my money on this because of like how you guys did the hockey. Well, there's a million things that can happen that like just mess with the person's experience. That you can, and again, you still have to pick. You still have to pick what you're going to fix.
But they pollute the experience of the game itself, right?
Exactly.
And they make all the work we do on that like just polluted, and it's so annoying to hear that kind of feedback, and especially when it's stuff that like we somehow didn't see, you know what I mean? Where you're like, fuck, like, because you just don't want to. Not annoying as like I'm annoyed players saying, but annoying like internally. We're like, I hope like, I wish I'd done that already.
But that's where like so as far as developing How Many Dudes, I mean, I'm personally outside of work hours, I'm playing How Many Dudes for at least 3 hours a day, every fucking day. Like I do at least a full run over breakfast before work every day. I do at least a full run after work, after all the changes that we've made. And oftentimes even just like, we've been doing a bunch of work this week on adding new, not meta progression layers, but kind of like within a given run of How Many Dudes, having more
events, more
things happen that allow you to make certain choices. Can I mention one of them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we just added a food dude, where a couple times per run, he's going to show up and he's got a selection of meals for you to feed to your dudes, but he's only got time to prepare one, and you got to pick which one you want, and then you're going to choose which dude type you're going to give it to, and it's essentially just a permanent stat boost for that type of dude. So it's like, like pretzels always give attack speed, or I think pretzels give crit, obviously. Baguettes give evasion. Hot pot gives this. Chili dogs give health, and so it's sort of like a new layer that exists kind of outside of the previous progression system, which was only relics, where you can use it to try to like, if you're feeling really strong, you can like use it to try to double down on a certain dude, where you're like, I'm going to make this dude even crazier. This dude has crit based abilities, and I'm going to just give him this like crazy pretzel that gives him a shit ton of crit. Or it's like, oh yeah, my medics are getting pancaked all the time, I'm going to give them some extra health and toughness with this chili dog, right? So it gives you some more kind of choices to make. And so we added that in a couple days ago, and then I got the build deployed at the end of the day, and then I started. I had some dinner. 6 p.m. I booted up. I'm like, let me do a run, kind of see how this new thing is feeling. I accidentally played till 11 p.m.
Yeah, that's great.
So I played for 5 hours. And this is happening to me like most days. I'm putting 2 to 5 hours of gameplay into it, and I'm personally running into all these quality of life things because I'm playing the game so fucking much.
Yeah, you're running into them constantly, right? Because
and so anytime I'm like, man, I really wish I had this, then I just go do it. Like that's just the next thing that I do. And so
again, like I don't want to spend. The reality is like we love making games. It's been a very wild and very good time to do so. They cost a lot of money to make. They take a lot of time to make. We have a whole team working on stuff. It's also like I don't want to make a dumb decision about like a very simple fucking thing that ends up making it so that the work of my entire team is like
just
invalidated for like some percent of the potential audience. You know what I mean? And again, there's always a threshold there, but it is surprising to me, oftentimes, frankly, how some games that get very, very big do have such a disconnect between some of those quality.
Yeah,
life
well, and to
things.
me, that's part of why I feel like I feel like the developer has some disdain for me in that case because
Right.
when that happened, when that gap is really big for a game that like.
It's like when Starfield came out and like didn't have a fucking field of view slider or something.
Yeah, where
Right,
it's
we
like
were
where
like,
it's like
Or a
it's
map,
like you've assumed
right?
a level of success where you decided that
People are going to
this
buy it no
level of
matter
jank
what.
people would just decide was
Yeah.
fine, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that even if it does turn out to be true in the sense that like looking at Mewgenics, looking at like it's not overwhelmingly positive, but it's like I think it's very positive, right?
Mhm.
So it's
Sure it
well rated, it's being played by a jillion people, everybody's writing good reviews, everybody's having a good time with that
Mhm.
game, right? Despite that, right? And so like it's worked out for them, which to me it makes me even more
It can make you feel
annoyed.
crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes me feel crazy because I'm like, you
Well,
decided.
but also the negative reviews are all in the same camp, you know, of
Yeah,
like
it's all
the,
this-
the stuff that we're talking about is people like, wow, this was really frustrating. But
Yeah.
the
I
but
wish
the
I could
funny,
play this game. You know?
Yeah, but the funny thing is, you know, they get dogpiled by by people basically saying like, well, that's just because you're stupid, you know,
Yep.
or like, oh, well, you just suck, or you don't know anything about turn-based games, or you just need to put another 20 hours into it and then it gets good, or it's a game about knowledge, you know, and so you just don't know anything yet. And you just got to get really deep into it so you've kind of like built up an encyclopedic knowledge of how everything works, and then you don't need all that UI stuff to tell you.
And like all of that can be true to an extent, but it's like right, but it's
Yeah.
but when it all piles together, the net effect is that any one thing that might be a design intent, right?
Gets
you can't
lost.
tell if it's a design
Yeah.
intent or
Yep.
not, or
Yeah.
versus they continued like, oh, I don't care how this feels, right?
Yeah, so it's all built on this insane amount of trust,
Exactly,
which is
yeah.
like if you
If
come
you don't
into
have
it,
that because you don't already have trust in the developer, then
yeah, if you come into it and you're saying like, all right, well, this feels bad and it feels like a slog, but people are saying that like once you're 30 or 40 hours into this slog, it doesn't feel like a slog anymore, and it's pretty fun. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, but like I could just go have fun
do
right
something
now.
else.
Yep, doing something. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a little bit. It feels like I'm taking crazy pills just because of that, like you're saying, Adam. But yeah, I think it's been an interesting.
Yeah, it's
to
fascinating to
see-
watch.
see
I think
how
and
it
again to our point about I love the way we've shifted some of the design approach even that we're doing. It's oriented more towards the high level stuff. It is like nowadays as far as like how we choose what we're making and what kind of like appeal we're trying to get. Because I do think the reality is that if you achieve some certain threshold in the high concept of the game and the appeal of the game, that you can get away with the fact that you don't have enough time oftentimes to like sand down every rough edge. You know what I mean? Whether it's purposeful or not, it's like you can't do everything. So
Well, so as an example, there's coming up in Next Fest, there's that Gnomes game.
yeah.
What's the name of it?
Burglin' Gnomes.
Burglin'
which is
Gnomes.
just I hadn't heard of it until I was looking at the list of things coming to Next
And you're
Fest.
like,
And
good name.
that title was almost enough for me just to buy it without even knowing what's going on. You know, like
Yeah, and it's
so
it's a co-op game where you play as gnomes breaking into people's houses and trying to steal their shit. You know,
Mhm.
and that's it.
Great
Is it an
concept.
asymmetrical game like as
I
somebody
don't
else,
think so.
or is
I don't
it
think-
just like an NPC human like
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
house? So it's kind of a co-op stealth game heist kind of a thing,
Mhm.
but with like gnomes and but it's one of those
probably
janky,
positional audio and stuff. I would guess.
yeah, and it's one of those
probably.
janky physics games, kind of like was it Baby versus Daddy or whatever,
It's got some of those
Yeah,
vibes. yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah.
a
Who's
game
your
that's
daddy? Yeah.
so fucking
Yeah.
janky.
or Who's Your
Yeah.
Daddy? Yeah, and so you know, I suspect it'll kind of go back. It'll go into that camp of like noteworthy, fun to talk about. A bunch of people will buy it and play it because just because of the concept. You know,
Well, multiplayer provides a base, like especially co-op multiplayer provides a baseline insulation against jank because it's even if you're dealing with jank, if you're dealing with it with friends, you're not gonna give as much of a fuck.
Yeah, but it depends on like how amusing the jank can be versus only frustrating. Because if the jank is like, now I'm literally stuck or something and I can't move.
Which
or
would
whatever.
happen in our who's your daddy?
Yeah, Who's Your Daddy
gameplay
was
we did.
it was so buggy.
It's actually broken. I'll call that one break.
It was
It
a
was broken.
broken
Yeah.
experience to the point where like it couldn't actually be fun, right? But yeah, so because there's still a range there too, and I agree. Like as a designer of a game like that, where you're gonna look at a game like that and you know, like okay, the attention to detail here is low. Like you can tell by looking at it, right?
The UI is
That's-
clearly just placeholder assets from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Unity default library.
So you can
or
tell
something.
you're they're not advertising as anything, but here's a janky, hilarious multiplayer experience.
Here's a
Like,
fun piece of crap
so as
that you
long
can
as it
kinda play
delivers
with
on as
for
long as
an
it
hour.
delivers on that, on its promise, a big and janky multiplayer experience without
carnival ride,
without
you know?
having anything that actually breaks it. Then
Yeah.
you could tolerate a huge amount of jank. That's true with anything that you're making, right? It's like depending on what you're signaling and who you are. And
I think
all this kind of
a
stuff,
lot of it comes down to like I think the reason a lot of the games in that genre work well is because they're physics oriented. They're not information based games. It's not like Mewgenics where I'm like, I need a spreadsheet of these cats so I can understand what the fuck's happening. It's like I'm just gonna go jump on this hill and see if I can climb it and peek. You know, like I'm gonna slap that grass.
Mewgenics says, hey, you're gonna play this game for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like I don't want it. I don't want to.
And the game is about knowing.
There's
things.
too much. There are games that I do play for hundreds of hours. I have 900 hours in Baldur's Gate.
Mhm.
You know, I've got like several hundred hours in Kerbal Space Program. I've got several hundred days of playtime in World of Warcraft.
Mhm.
Like I've got years of playtime in that game. And if a game is kind of pitching itself as a disposable play for a couple hours with your friends, fuck around, laugh at the bugs,
It's a
and
fireside game,
and move on with your life, that's fine. I don't.
Yeah,
I
if it
don't
was
care.
also like, here's all of this lore, and here's all these things you have to memorize, and here's a bunch of hidden information, like, that's not.
Yeah,
that's
if the
not gonna work.
game is clearly inviting you to treat it like a hobby and put a lot of your time into it, then it's just
Well,
it's
and
got.
I think that's
smooth,
why,
you know?
to me, Mewgenics still like lands in the nailed it category, is because that's its target audience. That's who it's for. It's made by people most famous for Binding of Isaac, which is also opaque. You learn by experience. It just like keeps on. You just keep on finding things that you just have to learn by doing. I think it does all of that correctly, and that's part of what makes it not a game for me. Because like I don't want a game that I have to play for 30 hours before I can have fun. I want a game that's fun when I
Just
start
right
playing
off
it,
the
right?
top,
But I understand that there's a huge target audience for people who want to have this kind of challenging, high cognitive load kind of experience and so on. Again, it's the part that makes me feel crazy is the part where you lean so heavily into that you're like, oh, this is what people are here for. So who cares if I make it harder for no reason, right? Like, not even as a design
Why can't I
choice.
just see my cat's health bars?
Why can't I just see their health bars? Why can't I see
Why?
two cats at once so I can compare them to? Like, why can't I do these things?
I just
that
go right
actually-
back to because those are UIs.
Honestly,
Yeah, I know that's the reason.
Yeah.
But
It is a custom engine. We noticed one of the craziest things to me is that they've hit this incredible sales margin, or this incredible sales target without having Chinese,
yeah, as in like
Which
a
is-
million sales in a week.
which is literally more than half of the Steam store audience at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's insane. And you have to ask the question though. We were like, why don't they have Chinese?
Because it's
And-
a UI problem.
Yeah, we were looking at the
That's our-
text.
our
To
guess,
me,
yeah.
it just comes right back. I feel like playing Mewgenics, I can just see right through into their development process.
Yeah. Which you
Which
shouldn't
is-
be able to do, right? Like, you
Yeah.
should-
It feels like it's really hard for them to do UI work.
They also do there's a lot of charming things in the UIs. You know, the text like does all sorts of zany shit. You know, like it's really big, it's really small. It's like,
But again, if that's implemented in such a way that's not very flexible, you know,
which is hard to do.
Then you're like, well, if you want to make a change to the UI, now you got to figure out how to redo that part. You know, it adds this overhead.
Yeah, what we were wondering is the font choice, like, are all the languages in the same font? Like they use one font and like everything is coded around that font because also like when you're dealing with text in a game, you have to deal with like breaking out of its space and people are used these days to being on the web, being in modern apps, that kind of stuff that do incredibly complicated built-in font rendering stuff so that you never see
Weird
things
shit.
like
Yeah.
do stuff they're not supposed to. But games don't do any of that. Games have basically like the lowest level font rendering stuff possible that you're trying to do stuff on top of, right? So when you see people doing fancy stuff with text, they're doing really hard stuff.
It's really hard.
And to get that stuff to work, you often have to make a lot of assumptions and do a lot of weird stuff, like assume things like how that your characters are always this wide. It includes only this set, you know, whatever. Like, there's a lot of assumptions that you start to make, and it could be the case here. This is our guess that they basically like built things around like whatever the game font is to do this kind of stuff, to do all of their zany text stuff.
Yeah, I mean the game supports a very specific number of languages, and they all use the exact same font. So it doesn't have
didn't use
Japanese,
Russian.
doesn't have Korean, doesn't have Russian, doesn't have Chinese. And again, it comes back to it's just a UI problem, and it just seems like most of the problems this game has
Just UI.
probably come down to some aspect of their development pipeline or process making it very difficult to do UI work.
Yeah, well, and also their like
So-
upfront design, either not considering what would happen if they had other languages that they couldn't use the same font, or deciding up front that
They
was a fine. That was
just
fine
didn't
to remove the possibility of supporting
Yeah.
those languages.
Which we were laughing because before the recording, I was like, well, I can kind of see it where it's like if it is a huge pain in the ass for them to do all this extra font work or whatever, just because of their development process or whatever. If they're selling 1 million copies in the first weekend, it's a $30 game. It's on sale for like 10% off. So it's like, yeah, like in the first week, they're bringing home,
Tens of
15
millions.
million bucks.
yeah, tens of millions, and that's
Wait, what are they selling it for? $30. So
$30. Yeah.
$30, and then you get all the regional stuff, and yeah, I would say probably like $15 a
Yeah,
piece on average.
But then, of course, like we also know, Steam takes a smaller cut as you make more money. So like they're pushed into that, right? So they're taking home an even bigger cut. And so it's like if it's a team that's that small, it's fine. Like they don't need the Chinese audience because they got tens of millions of dollars just right off the hop. But then to Sam's point, it's like but it's like for like a little bit of extra work, they could have made like tens of millions of dollars
literally
more.
doubled the size of that,
You know?
lot, which would be. I mean, it's already an insane and impressive feat, and like again, hats off to Ed McMillan and Tyler Clearhorn because like
Very
incredible.
impressive. Yep.
But like I get kind of crazy because it's like you could have been 2x.
Could have doubled
Not
that.
even kidding, could have doubled it. Which is nuts. You know what I mean? That's just
Well, and kind of to the point where like why are you making the game? It's for people to play it.
Yeah.
It's for players. And so if there is again back to the
maybe,
low
or just because you want to make like,
or just because you're bored.
And again, that's to me that's part of what it feels like with this game, like what Mewgenics is. It feels like it's a game that they made because they wanted this game to exist. It's not specifically for people to play.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. If that.
Yeah. So if that was the case, it was more just a fun thing for them to make. Then in that case, it's like, don't bother with the Chinese because that just wasn't part of the
It's really hard.
calculus,
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we're basically out of time for this episode.
Mhm.
It's a bit longer than I thought we would on that. But I do want to just mention a couple last things before we
Go.
go. So Steam Next Fest is February 23rd through March 2nd. So it starts on the Monday that's 2 days before this episode goes out.
Mhm.
So as you're listening to this, Next Fest will be
Underway.
2 days in. So there's some kind of like selection process for like how games get featured on Next Fest, something. But anyways, if you haven't yet, go pick up How Many Dudes because that'll help kind of surface it in Steam Next Fest. So we got the
It's sort of a
demo up on
critical
Steam.
window. So
And if you
wanna
have, go play it because maybe that has an impact. If
just go
people
play
have
it.
to
Go do
Just
a
go
run.
play it. Go do
a
a run. Go play
Yeah.
with some dudes.
Mhm.
Any little bit kind of helps to like boost the game's visibility during that, which we appreciate. And otherwise, I just wanted to mention there's a pretty cool article in howtomarketagame.com. It's called The Counterintuitive Advantage of Launching During Steam's Busiest Events. And so How Many Dudes is heavily featured kind of toward the latter half of that article, talking about how we launched our demo into the Steam winter sale and how so apparently we were featured in the trending section for like 24 days straight
on the free
top
trending
free or top
24 days straight based on when he started scraping.
when he
But
started measuring.
we actually had like 2 weeks more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a big part of that article is kind of talking about how indies have a tendency to give each other bad advice about when to launch because they'll do stuff like, oh, there's a AAA game launching close to my launch date and it's going to suck all the oxygen out of the room and I need exposure on my game. And just like kind of the ways that indies in particular tend to identify where they want to launch their games, or they'll say like, oh, well, I got a lot of momentum coming out of Steam Next Fest, so I'm going to launch right after Next Fest, which it turns out not actually that good of a time to launch, usually.
But again,
all
and
these
it's
things have a caveat, like usually.
Yeah, and they're all because ultimately it always comes down to the game and like the randomness of what actually happens that day, right? But there's reasonable logic behind all these positions that people are taking. The problem is that you can make an argument. You can always make an argument the other way, no matter what the argument is. And so you need some kind of data to actually decide like, how often is this thing that seems like it would be true actually true?
Yeah.
And it turns out for most of these kinds of scenarios, either, and it's a little unclear through his article, because sometimes he's just like linking to a counterexample where it's like, hey, that wasn't true for this game, right? But that could be it could be true on average and not true for this game. And some things he links to are a little more in depth, where it's like, this looks to be generally not true, right? So so even with his piece, which is good, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. You got to treat that with nuance too, right? Like of like, nobody knows. Nobody knows.
It always depends, but there's
It always depends.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a gist here, and yeah, a lot of it is not what people would think it is. But
Yeah, everything is how many dudes, like we talked about a lot. We very intentionally released the demo before the winter sale, but our logic there wasn't that it doesn't matter, whatever. It was actually very specifically, no one's going to be launching any new stuff because everybody's afraid to, and demos are free. Therefore, free can compete with cheap, right?
Yep.
And
there's a lot of traffic, and people have a lot of downtime,
Yeah.
and the store doesn't turn over during that entire time. So we're like,
if we can get up there,
and
we'll
that logic, like,
it
and
worked.
that was just
that
and it
time.
worked.
For
But
that
it also
game.
could have been specific to how many dudes, so it's hard to guess. And
Yep.
that logic may not apply to like a full game release that people have to pay for. There's now more of a suggestion based on Chris's article, and based on the fact that it worked for the demo, right? There's an implication there that actually maybe the logic still applies, even to a game release, but that changes the dynamics. It changes the question, and we would need.
Well, I was
see more
just
stuff.
laughing because we've said publicly in the How Many Dudes Fact that we're aiming to launch the game by the end of June, and so far we're still kind of roughly on target, give or take, depending on
some of these final systems,
some other
how they shake out.
decisions and stuff. But it's looking like we could probably hit that. But there's a kind of a caveat, which is like the middle of June is Summer Next Fest, and the end of June is the summer sale. Which means
And then after the summer sale, everyone spent all their money on games.
Yeah. So what that really means is like, well, if we can't launch by early June, then do we launch
into the summer
into
sale?
the summer sale?
Oh.
Do we do that? Or do we wait till summer sale is over and then launch in July? Is that
Or do we wait until Grand Theft Auto's launching
and
do
launch
a
on the same day
Barbenheimer?
as Grand Theft Auto?
All the choices
Which-
we have. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
The thing is, I guess what's interesting is you can craft a pretty compelling story for doing any one of these
anyway.
things.
Pro
Any
and
one of
con.
them.
I could
So
have
at
an
some
infinite
point-
list of good reasons to do these and bad reasons.
Yep.
to do
At some point, you just gotta be like, I don't know.
And there will never be enough data in the universe to tell you what the answer is.
well, it's
Also,
also like if you're gonna
randomly
launch,
fucker shadow drop stuff. So like you might, like
yeah, you pick a date, and then Silk Song gets a fucking expansion pack or something that day, and then
Cool.
And that may or may not matter.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, maybe they won't do that during the summer sale. Maybe everybody's scared to do shit during the sales, so let's just dive in there.
Mhm. I'm kind of into that idea, honestly. It's kind of
Yeah,
fun.
well, and I think
I mean,
ultimately
if you're gonna have a
rationale-
launch discount anyway, you might as well.
Yeah, if you
Well,
want
I guess
launch
to me,
into
the
the-
rationale around the sales is it's basically assuming that what sales are for is for people who, very specifically, like the flood of people who come in for a sale. The assumption is that they're there basically to clean out their wish lists, in essence, right? They're there for games they already know about and already want, but haven't bought, right? Because they're not on sale or because
Just
they
wait
would
for
just
that.
buy it anyway, right? But that's what they're there for. Because if that's what they're there for, then yeah, launching a brand new game at full price into that sale, dude, that's not the target audience. They're going to be spending money doing other stuff, right? But if that's just
If it's just a
what
window when
brought
people
them to the
shop,
store, yeah,
Yeah.
because Steam sends them emails like, hey, literally everything you've ever wishlisted is on sale right now, right? So then they come in, people know that's going to happen. They've got money ready to go. That's when they're going to go. If that's when they're going to buy games,
People come
because-
to Steam during the sale events to spend money.
right? And if that's what they're doing, then yeah, you are competing with everything else that's on sale. So there's a price competition that's happening. That's real, for sure.
But
right?
games aren't commodities.
Games are commodities, and
And
so
yours
people
is
want
new,
your game,
Yeah,
and yours is
that's right.
new, and most importantly, it can be visible on the store during the
Yeah.
sale. Because
Yeah,
if it can't
That's the big
be,
question.
then that's a bad time.
Yeah,
because
it's
you're
like,
competing with.
but
a
it's
lot
also
more
like
noise.
something has to be featured during the summer sale. And
Well, the
what
summer
tends to
sale
be,
itself was featured, and
Yeah.
but also because Steam heavily features, like all of Steam's featuring stuff during the sale is about how much sales velocity is going on, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
so you're competing.
but when are
with,
you going to
like,
get better sales velocity except for during your launch?
Yeah,
That's
but when
the
are
best
you
time.
going to be able to compete with a AAA game that's on sale for $5?
Oh, anytime. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. So
Obviously,
anyway, the point
as we
being,
discussed.
Yeah.
as we said, there's a million arguments for and against, but ultimately it all
Right.
comes down to the same thing every single time, which is, can people see your game, and
Mhm.
is the way that people are seeing it, are you leveraging what the store is up to maximize how much people are seeing it?
And also sometimes, do you just want to fuck around and find out?
Just wanna- yeah,
I
you just
kind of
wanna
want to
try
fuck around and
something?
find out.
I
you
do
know?
too. I want to launch. I want to launch into the summer sale, which is like a 10% launch discount. You
Yeah.
know, that way
Mhm.
we're still on sale, and whatever. But it's like,
And also, how many dudes will probably be
Fuck
cheaper than most games already, right? So,
Yeah.
because we're not
For a
looking
lot.
at a $60 price point or anything.
Mhm.
no, it's gonna be cheap. It's gonna be probably on sale when we launch it. At that point, fucking just rip it.
I don't know. Yeah, if anybody's got a thought on that, drop it in the comments. I'm curious. So
Yeah.
I personally would want to see someone do it so I could know what the fuck happened. So I'm like,
Be the change you want to see
why
in the
not?
world,
Yeah,
Sam.
why not us?
Yeah.
You know?
And that is the thing, is like, if people like catch on to this idea that actually maybe these are good, then, because this is the way that all the stores work. If somebody like discovers that something is a feasible strategy, then everybody starts to try that strategy, and then it
Mhm.
becomes not feasible anymore. Because the reason that anything is feasible is because everyone's competing for limited visibility, right? So if you find a new thing that gives you visibility, it's because you've somehow dodged competition. That's what that means, right?
Dude.
So if the competitors come in, so we've got a shot here. Although we're telling everybody in the world about it right now, but like,
Whatever.
we got a
Well,
shot
probably
here.
because somebody else listens to
it
this podcast.
sounds that's true. It sounds so risky and dumb. You know what I mean?
It just might work.
That it just might work. I'm in. Whatever. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. We ball.
Yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, imagine though, when the Steam summer sale hits, it's like a free for all of new games.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That'd be fucking sick.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'd be like, right now it's like, oh yeah, you're just looking for deals, or whatever. But what if it becomes like everybody wants to launch during the summer sale? Because again, it's like that's when people are coming to the store to spend
Mhm.
money. And it just becomes like all the coolest games are all coming out like in the same week, and just a bonanza.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
Honestly, I wish.
I'd
there's
take some PTO for that. you
Yeah,
know?
because there is this problem that we have as game publishers, people trying to sell games for a living, right?
Mhm.
Which is that most of what we talk about when it comes to like launch strategy and all that kind of stuff is competing with the games that are coming out right now, right? And try to like dodge that and whatever. But the reality is that your competition is like the growing part of your competition is the backlog of games that people could have bought that already exist that they haven't bought yet.
And short
And
form video, honestly. That's
And
what
short
it is.
form video, but within games. So,
Yeah.
but what sales, especially Steam sales, have always been about is like, hey, games have already been out, and you decided to not buy them previously for some reason.
That's true.
But now they're on sale, so maybe you are willing to, right? And so they're all about this infinitely growing back catalog
Mhm.
that is a core part of it's part of what makes making games for a living harder year over year, is that good games come out that people want.
And they just
Year
keep
over
playing
year.
them.
And even if they're not playing them yet, they have a growing backlog of stuff. They're constantly deciding, do I get this one now or do I get a new thing? You know?
I do like your framing though, which is basically saying that, you as a player, you have decided not to play one of these games
Yeah.
from Malicious this whole time. And we're just going to say, just keep on making that decision. Okay.
Yeah, exactly,
Here's
yeah.
a new one.
Here's something else, something new. and
Don't
shiny.
worry about
You weren't gonna
those.
play that shit anyway.
Yeah, let's be real.
Does it spark joy? Obviously not.
Yeah.
It's like in the life-changing magic of tidying up when she talks
Yep.
about books, where
Mhm.
she's like, sometimes you buy a book and you're like, I'm gonna read this book, and then you never do, and you keep it because you're like, someday I'm gonna read that book. Just accept it. Just
Yep.
you got what you needed from this book, which was it taught you that you didn't give a shit about it. You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
just set it aside. It's fine.
Well,
Move
actually,
on.
which reminds me, remember back when one of the Steam events, because they tried to gamify it in some way every time. And they had that one where they were going to give you a random game in your wish list.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And
God.
so
And then everybody cleared out.
everybody
their list.
purged their
That
wish
happened
list.
during Crashlands 2, Dev, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
sometime fairly recently. But I think there's an
It was
interesting
because
thing
of
there,
Cyberpunk. People were like,
Yeah.
everybody wanted Cyberpunk for free.
and an
Yeah.
interesting thing there is that for games that hadn't come out yet, that probably was detrimental because people hadn't made a decision yet if they're going to buy the game, and people who wishlist a game before it comes out convert at a really high rate, right? And so then all of a sudden those are gone because there's a game people could have now, right? So, but of the games that were already out,
Probably was pretty good.
it probably had probably had a minimal, like a long-term impact because people who haven't converted yet, right, who've already had the game could have bought it, gone through multiple sales, still didn't buy it. The chances of them buying that game out of their wish list is approaching zero because they keep on adding more stuff to their wish list, right? So again, it's that whole backlog versus new games thing, and it's all very interesting. And the question ultimately, when it comes to release timing, is what are people doing at the store, and what can they see? And is it really true that they're just there to buy stuff they already know about that's on sale? Right.
I don't know. I'm kind of down to clown. We'll think about it some more.
I mean, the fun thing with How Many Dudes is it's such a short development cycle that even if it only goes medium, we could be like, all right, medium is still profitable.
Well, yeah, depending on like we said earlier, though, is if we're doing this as a business, like we are, right? Paying salaries, paying healthcare, paying taxes, all this kind of stuff, right? Every month of dev is enormously expensive. So even though it's a short dev time, but if it's June, that's a 9 month it's going to be nearly a year, right? That should add it up.
It's several $100,000 to make this game, which by most game standards is basically zero, but not by our standards. So we'll see. We'll dig more into this. We'll dig more into this question.
But it's the thing is, no matter how much we dig into it, we'll just have
we'll have no answers. At some point, fuck it, we ball.
100%,
which we probably will. So we'll see. Anyways, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. And like I said, Steam Next Fest is happening right now as this episode comes out, so head on over there, pick up How Many Dudes, play some How Many Dudes, have a good time with your dudes. We appreciate it. Helps a lot. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.